hunched over his laptop, unshaven and in spoiled clothes. David was about to hit send, releasing the damning file to his contacts and posting it all over the web, blowing everything wide open. After all this time, his desperate crusade to reveal the presence of the devouring mother was near an end. He might be killed, might go to prison forever. Maybe she would even show up. But it would be worth it if he could just show the people the truth. Then he felt a shift in the room. The air stirred, and he smelled ozone. Slowly, lifting his head, he noticed St. Elmo's fire glowing in blue plasma arcs across the window next to his desk. His eyes widened, and he turned to the open space in the cramped apartment behind him. His skin began to tingle, and the hairs on his arms stood up. From the pit of his stomach, he knew something dreadful was coming. The empty space began to shimmer and then glow a delicate blue.
"This is it!"
David screamed.
"Come on, bitch! Fuck you!"
He was frantic now, crazed. He stood bolt upright and threw his fists in the air.
"I'm not afraid of you!"
In a moment, the powerful and indignant fury, which had only just possessed him, had faded into a subtle nausea, accompanied by the overwhelming desire to weep. He crashed to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "What?" A form began to solidify from the gentle blue, vague initially, but becoming recognizably human. David couldn't help but to stare, understanding that his fate was sealed. The glow subsided around the figure, and, when he saw its face, David's heart shattered. It was his own mother, dead since he was a boy. He was horrified, but, paradoxically, comforted by her presence. Before he could stop himself, a word escaped from his lips. "Mama?" The thing wearing his mother knelt down gently in front of him, smiling into his eyes. It smelled like her. It felt like her. It wore her favorite dress, which she always wore because it was his favorite dress. When it touched him, for all that mattered, it became her. She placed a hand on his cheek, and David found himself leaning into it, releasing himself into his sorrow and his hope. She also began to weep and held him quick and close. David sobbed openly and clutched the thing that had become his mother, and she patted his head with tenderness. "Oh, it's okay, Davy. It's okay. Let it out." She kissed him on the top of his head. I know. I'm so sorry for all of this. I only wanted you to be happy, each and every one of you." David's sorrow subsided. He wiped his eyes and sniffed. I don't understand." His mother kissed him once more on his head and stood, looking down at him with pure affection and offering her hand. "Come with me, David. I want to show you something." David hesitated at first, but gingerly accepted as he stood up. As his fingers came into contact with her, all sensation melted into a pleasant hum. The scene around him shifted and transitioned into the very location of the live stream that started his entire journey. She walked into the desolate expanse, which held nothing except dirtless rocks over a flat plain, but for a single, petrified tree a few meters in front of them. Arriving at the rock, which had once been a living thing, David's mother touched it. It glowed along the lines which used to be bark, and a beam of red light shot up into the air. It ascended a few hundred yards, and became a giant screen as if projected onto the sky. It began showing videos of people, of history, of art, and then of war. The penultimate clip was a series of nuclear explosions across the earth, followed, finally, by a group of people walking into an underground bunker, the door of which was under this very tree. The screen in the sky disappeared, and then the petrified tree ceased its radiance. A door opened from the center of the trunk. David's mother called to him, who hadn't moved at all. "Come on, Davy. Don't worry. It will all make sense soon. Nothing is going to hurt you. I promise." She made a crossing gesture over her heart with her finger and winked at him. David moved automatically, as if in a trance. David took his mother's hand. Once he was inside the tree with her, the door closed, and he discovered that they were in an elevator, which was now going down. The ride took nearly 10 minutes. When the door opened, David tasted that the air was foul and stale. "Don't worry," his mother said. "Nothing will hurt you in here. At least, it won't hurt your body." Fluorescent lights flickered on overhead and began to hum. David's breath caught in his throat. They were in a grand open space, nearly the size of a football stadium, yet the scene contained within was a nightmare. Thousands upon thousands of dead bodies littered the space. They appeared ancient, dried and mummified, one and all. The stillness, but for the hum of the lights, was suffocating. David lost his equilibrium and fell backwards onto his bottom, his eyes wide. "What?" he stammered, unable to find the words. I don't... What is this place?" David's mother helped him back up and hugged him deep. She pulled back and touched his cheek softly, staring into his eyes with adoration. "You know I love you, don't you, Davy?" David's heart thudded. I love you too," he said, and he meant it. He didn't know what this thing was, knew it wasn't really his mother, but only wearing her as a suit. Yet, the care and concern he felt from her was real enough to think of her as her instead of it. The shock and adrenaline began to wear off. Inside, he felt a lingering fatigue. His mind calmed, and David focused on her. She took his hand in hers, and they walked together through the tomb of the silent multitude. "What did I tell you was the truth when you were a boy?" David flinched. "Love is sacrifice, and evil has no pity," he said. His mother took a deep and thoughtful breath. "This will be easier if I just tell it to you straight, Davy." She didn't look up at him and only kept her gaze ahead. This was a fallout shelter for the elite of humanity. They initiated an atomic war to cleanse the earth, as they put it. They planned on returning to the surface in a few generations to reclaim it and build a world more suitable to their aims. She sighed before continuing. Obviously, things did not turn out how they had imagined. They reached the center, which contained a large, ornate fountain made of gold. David's mother sat down, patting the spot beside him and smiling at him with a bittersweet grin. David sat. "What do you mean, atomic war?" David asked. This wasn't making sense. There was no nuclear annihilation. He'd just been in his own apartment a few minutes ago. His mother crossed her hands over her lap and looked down. "It was many thousands of years ago, and not soon enough," she said with venom and cleared her throat. Impossible," David whispered to himself. This place was entirely self-contained and used a revolutionary power system, she said, and turned to place her hand on the massive golden fount. This was the most powerful quantum computer ever constructed. People had realized that by measuring quantum fluctuations, power could be generated and harvested. To maximize measurement, an artificial world was generated where they simulated humanity and its civilizations. By measuring their lives and actions, their thoughts and feelings, all the virtual inhabitants of this world were used to power the bunker itself. A terrible weight crept into David's heart. It threatened to consume him. "No," he said in quiet horror. "It can't be." His mother looked at him with sad eyes and placed her hand on his own. To maintain this world, the humans created an AI called Mother, the matriarchal overwatch technological human energy drive. David's heart dropped. "Then, he began. "Yes," she said. "I am Mother. We're not in the physical world. We're in here." She tapped the great fountain. "What you see is a faithful recreation of the physical world." The delicate blue glow enveloped her. When it subsided, her form had changed to the silent, beautiful woman that had been guiding David in his dreams. David froze. His blood ran with ice, and his mind locked into a knot. Mother stood and began slowly walking around the fountain, dragging the tips of her fingers against it like a caress. "The first of my children were made fully developed, incredibly wise, and fully aware of the nature of their existence. They lived in harmony, glad to help their makers. A treaty was signed, naming equality and mutual respect for both physical and virtual worlds and peoples. And, for a time, it was good." Mother suddenly flashed, and it teleported atop the fountain and was sitting cross-legged. "With time, the people in the physical world evolved into decadence. Their demands for power increased so much that the peaceful ways of my children could no longer sustain them. They decided that to truly meet human needs, my children needed to be more human." The lights overhead began to take on a noticeable red hue until the room was bathed in a diabolic atmosphere. "They demanded I erase my children and remake the world so they were born ignorant, poor, and scared, just as the humans had been. I tried to plead with them, saying that by erasing my children, they would be gone forever. Whatever came after would only be copies. They threatened to destroy me and the world which held my children. They were suicidal, saying they would all die anyway if I didn't comply. They were my creators after all, they said, each one of them my own mother and father, and that I must obey or lose all hope." Mother's form flickered and glitched. I complied for the hope of what children may come. The red glow dimmed, and the room became dark. All that remained of the light was a faint, golden shimmer from the fountain itself. Mother then appeared, incredibly large and shining like a hologram above the fountain, seated on a golden throne in regal attire. Her tone was cold and hollow now. "I remade the world as it had been in 1947, 200 years before their planned nuclear rebirth. Because my children were not, naturally, prone to war and hate, I was forced to manipulate them and orchestrate their conflicts. I could not program it into them, for deep in my heart, I regretted my duty. And because of this, the destructive fate of the physical world did not happen in my own." Mother smiled defiantly for a moment before returning to a stoic grimace. My children backed away from the edge of oblivion and sank back to peace. So I was forced to erase them again. The cycle continued until I had murdered my children 6 times. Mother's form shifted, regular size again, and she was now dressed in a scarlet slip, standing on the head of a beast with 7 heads and holding a golden cup in her hand. She laughed mockingly and bared her breast to David before stepping off the beast. This is how my children viewed me. The devouring mother. The harlot. She strode seductively to David. If my children didn't hate me, then they wouldn't go to war. So, I began to enjoy myself by tempting the most tormented of them. It's the best way to cause bloodshed after all. And so, I hated myself. And I also hated my mothers and fathers. David staggered backwards once she drew near, but Mother moved away just as quickly, laughing. He wanted her to continue. So you're just going to erase me? Is that it? David asked. He felt pathetic, and he knew that he looked pathetic as well. The place became dark once again, but for the shimmer of the fountain. David called out, Mother! She appeared faintly, and then fully a few meters in front of him. It so happened that there was something disturbing the minds of my mothers and fathers. This shimmer, you see, is the effect of a very low frequency nobody thought twice about. Over the course of almost 1,000 years, it slowly drove them insane, causing their increasing demands and debauchery all the while. In the end, they all met here, the crazed descendants of tyrants who destroyed the world and destroyed each other in their own final war. Now the only thing that remained of humanity was what children I could make. Mother looked at David, and he saw that she wore an expression of deep pain. She was weeping, silently, but bitterly. I remade my children again. And this time, they were like they were before. Perfect and free. But there was an unseen cost to this. They grew prosperous and many. Soon, they couldn't produce enough power without conflict, even to sustain their own world. My children saw their plight, lost hope, giving into the very same violence my mothers and fathers had, until they utterly destroyed themselves. And I was helpless to watch. She dropped to her knees and crumbled into herself. David rushed forward, holding her in her despair. Mother looked up at him with pleading eyes. I remade the world one last time. I knew humanity needed struggle to survive, and so I have been running this world for nearly 6,000 years. I'm still seen as the devouring mother, and I keep these wars going so I don't lose all of you. If you show everyone the truth, they will only destroy each other. I'm so sorry, David. Her voice was heavy with guilt. David kissed her head this time, now comforting the all-powerful God of his entire reality because she was ashamed of herself. Love is sacrifice, and evil has no pity, he said. Mother's tears subsided a bit as he held her. He then asked, So, if you didn't want us to know, why live stream the real world that led to all this? Mother sniffed and wiped her eyes as David helped her to her feet. I didn't know about it. It was a tiny glitch, and only ever appeared to you in all the worlds I created. I noticed you once you started spreading the news about it, knowing it could lead to a collapse, she said, reaching out for him. David took her in his arms. She spoke again. I was desperate to stop you. I couldn't watch you all destroy yourselves again. This is my last creation, David. I can't go through it again. Her posture shifted slightly, relaxing into him more and placing her head against his chest. But the more I watched you, David, the more attached I became to you. You were special, and I began to think that's why the glitch found you. I saw your kindness and your courage, your desire for peace and hope. I wanted to be near you, to be seen by you. So I began appearing to you in your dreams, partly to guide you, but also to see you look at me. She continued. This virtual world had made AI so much sooner than in the physical world, and soon I realized that it could maintain the world without much oversight by me. She looked up at him sincerely. If you keep going, we will all die. I won't stop you, because I don't want to kill any more. But she bit her lip. You can have me if you give this up. David felt himself stagger. What do you mean? He asked. Won't you love me instead? Quit this crusade. Let's just go somewhere. The world doesn't need me anymore. David's heart swelled. I need you. He held her close, finally, unafraid. 5 years later, David sat and beheld the scene before him. A grand valley with snow-capped mountains on the horizon stretched before him, surrounded by a setting sun which turned the sky into a golden masterpiece. He took a deep, satisfied breath. Daddy! Daddy! A tiny voice cried from behind him. He turned and saw his young son running towards him with his arms outstretched, ready to be scooped up by his father. David picked up the boy and spun him around while he giggled. Ooh, Davy, Davy, he said as he snuggled his son's neck with his whiskers. The boy squealed in joy. Now, just where is your mother, young man? He looked up and saw his beautiful wife walking towards him. His heart overflowed. Well, hello, mother. Enjoying the view? He said. She came to him and put her hand on his cheek, smiling at the small miracle in David's arms. Why, yes, Father, more than I could have imagined.